Hey guys, welcome back to another Sunday night show. The main reason I do these Sunday night shows is a lot of people don't have time to read the news every day, go over and pick out the best stocks every single day. You can negate that by just doing a lot of prep over the weekend. You're gonna miss a lot of moves, but this will help you capture, in my opinion, what are the essential moves. You're gonna miss a lot of the penny stock runners, but the big market tradable names, you can kind of figure out what to do on Sunday. And that's the purpose of the show. This week, I am drinking El Chavo. It's a habanero mango drink, fuel for this Sunday night show. Anyway, I want to go over some key things before I even get to earnings. You know what? Let's just get earnings out of the way early this week. There's only one earnings I'm watching this week. That is FuelCell. That's on Tuesday. FuelCell can be I wouldn't call it a cheap stock. It went from like $25 earlier in the year to like $6 where it's been at for a long time. It's a hydrogen play. However, it trades really all over the place aggressively. It's a great trading name. I would avoid shorting this name. I know some people think it's a name that's great to short. I'm only going to buy this name to the long side. I'm not going to play it both ways. So if the action, I want to clarify what I mean here. I'm not going to just buy the stock blindly and hope it goes up. If the action on Tuesday, Wednesday seems like there's a lot of buying pressure on FuelCell stock, ticker symbol FCEL, I will also be joining in for the ride up. So that's the only earnings season trade. But I want to talk about the state of the overall market again. Now, I'm not doing videos about, market crash and all that. You see a lot of clickbait videos about a stock market crash. We don't know. With the Federal Reserve constantly printing money and their asset purchasing program and all that in place, the market has a lot of support, I think. Having said all that, there is potential for a taper, and I think that's one of the leading things that can cause this market to go down. So if there's any change in taper talk or taper like that, Jerome Powell can easily come out and spook the market one day. So just be cognizant. And despite the asset buying program still taken into effect, there's not this constant upward force on the market. Maybe we'll get that later on. We'll see. We've actually dropped 2% last week. Normally after a drop of 2 to 3%, which has happened all the time in this market throughout this run up, it's been a consistent run up, but these 2 to 3% dips have been consistently bought back. So let's really pay attention to what happens next week. Last time I was forced to close out my short position. This time I have a short position on that I've closed half off on Friday with a profit. And that's essentially how you have to trade. Just be super nimble. I'm ready to put it back on. I'm ready, depending on the action on Monday. But you just have to be nimble in this market. I think if a correction does happen, it will happen fast and very aggressively, maybe within a few days. So you just have to have some action on the correction. Having said that, the other thing I want to note, and this news came to me, that Federal Reserve, a couple of the presidents are actually selling. Fred Kaplan and Rosenberg are apparently, I hope I said that right, Rosenberg, are actually selling their stocks. So, oh wow, I like this. This is actually spicy and sweet. If you like cider and you like spice, this is actually really good. But they're actually selling all of their stocks. There's an article that came out saying that, hey, we're selling all of our stocks. We're worried that we have a conflict of interest with the overall markets, etc. We just want to do our best job. Essentially, that was the gist of the article. And it's like, really, you guys? I mean, you can't make this shit up. It's like the most corrupt shit I've ever seen. They're basically selling their stocks at the S&P being 4,500, with the action already turning negative, with every single headline. I don't know if you guys are watching the market headlines. Every single headline right now is with Morgan Stanley and all these banks saying a 10% correction, 10% correction. Now they're selling their stocks. It's like, so I feel like it's a huge conflict of interest. They're selling their stocks. They could know something. They control essentially what has been keeping the entire market higher. It's almost like insider trading, in my opinion, because they have a plan or knowledge of when they're going to cause the taper, essentially stop their asset buying program that's been propping up the markets. And they're choosing to sell now, saying that, hey, we're worried about how this will be perceived. We're worried about a potential, how the public will perceive us, getting wealthy while we're basically buying assets, forcing the market higher. So it's a bunch of bullshit, in my opinion. And, them selling, to me, is kind of a red flag that you guys should be aware of. Fed presidents are selling stocks at the market's all-time high, essentially. Couldn't they have thought of this conflict of interest when the S&P was, 2,800 or at least, 32, 3,500? They're thinking it's a conflict of interest now at the S&P being at an all-time high. So to me, it's kind of like, yeah, dude, fuck you. But it is what it is. It's sort of a rigged system. You can't really, all you can do is kind of join in for the ride. So that's the key thing. That's honestly the main reason I'm doing the Sunday video this week, is I want everyone to be cautious with the market. I'm not scaring everyone saying, oh, we're going to get a correction or whatever, or hey, Frugal Tiger, you've been calling for a correction for a long time. It's like, no, I've just been kind of following the tape action. I would have made a lot more money had I just stuck all my money in the market and let it just run. But I mean, who could have predicted the S&P climbing this high for this long? So overall, that's the key thing. Just be cognizant. Federal Reserve is selling. Many of the presidents are selling. Definitely Kaplan and Rosenberg. Who knows who else? Citing conflict of interest BS. And beyond that, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the 10% correction headlines by Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, all these other banks, because they've been calling for it for a long time. But the Federal Reserve one has me a little rattled. I'm worried they might be aware of the taper. Canada is actually on its track. That's the other thing I want to talk about. Canada might be tapering soon too. So that's a lot of liquidity getting removed out of the financial system, not just from the US, but for Canada. And the reason it's a big deal is a lot of people, the US is kind of like a hotbed for buying assets across all international territory. Other countries will buy US stocks, wealthy people from other countries. So liquidity getting moved out of another first world country like Canada could be a big deal, because wealthy people in their country might not have as easy access to liquidity anymore. And we have to look at what other central banks are doing as well. So that's the other thing I kind of want to mention. Lastly, that's kind of the big thing is, really watch the overall market. The other thing I want to talk about is Apple. That was the big news on last Friday. Apple stock kind of dropped off pretty hard, actually, 3% drop almost. And Apple lost a lawsuit against Epic. Now, the reason it's kind of a big deal for the overall market, I'm not just talking about Apple. That's another name I'd be trading this week, by the way. It should be more volatile than usual, is because Apple actually lost a lawsuit against Epic, the maker of Fortnite, about its in-game app purchasing. Apple has to allow Epic customers to buy, additional features on Fortnite through alternative stores, not just the Apple Store, which is a huge loss of revenue for Apple, who might not have, as much revenue coming in from the App Store anymore, because this law isn't going to just affect Epic; it's going to affect all apps. Just merely the ability to buy and purchase app features without having to go through the App Store essentially costs Apple quite a bit of revenue. I think it's estimated somewhere between 10 to 20 billion in revenue. That's a huge deal for Apple. We'll see how the actual trade plays out. Sometimes these things will take a long time to play out. Sometimes they happen really fast. So ultimately, this will impact the overall market, because what happens to Apple, I think Apple comprises almost 6% of the S&P, but if people start losing money on Apple, they'll probably sell Apple. The price of the S&P could potentially fall, might cause them to start selling other things. So not only is Apple a tradable name for the week, it could actually also affect the overall price of the overall market, because it's such a big name in so many people's portfolios. If you just have the spider index, or if you're just exposed to the S&P, you're exposed to this name. So be cognizant of that. Trade Apple this week. And then lastly, I just want to go over all the names that I'm watching. Obviously watching AMC. I'm obviously watching Apple. I'm watching Tesla again, boys. Tesla is having a lot of action going both ways. It sold off hard on Friday. I think it's a very tradable name. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to probably be a little short biased on Tesla, but I'm going to be trading it both ways. It has action both ways. Lastly, NIO. Since we're talking Tesla, I'll watch NIO, another EV maker. And I want to watch support.com, SPRT. And the last one is Rocket Labs, RKLB. It's had a lot of action last week. It's up 50%. Let's see if the run can continue. I have a feeling it's going to get sold off. If you can get locates and you're very, very good about getting out of losing positions intraday, it might be worth looking into RKLB. Having said that, just follow the tape. If you're not comfortable with going short, maybe don't go short. If the action's in your favor, long, go long. So, but the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of money in RKLB. Lastly, Sava had a huge drop, SAVA. It was at like $140 a few months ago. It's down to 50. You know, you might want to potentially buy the dip here, but it's a high risk play, you guys. So just because it dropped from like $140 to $50 doesn't mean it's easy value at $50. Things can obviously go down to zero. And if there's a market correction, all bets are off. Full disclosure, I took about 200 shares here, just something to give me exposure, but something I'm not going to be biting my fingernails in fear when I'm trying to go to sleep. Obviously, adjust your position accordingly. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but it might be an action name. Once again, a market correction, all bets are off. So yeah, that's essentially it, you guys. Watch the overall market, watch the action. Last time we had a 2 to 3% sell-off. Honestly, every time we've had a 2 to 3% sell-off from like last August, it's been bought back aggressively. Let's see if this pattern continues. If it doesn't, maybe start trading some S&P futures or shorting SPY. Watch the overall market. If you don't short, that's fine. Maybe reduce your exposure. That's it. That's all I have for this week. The overall market is the key theme for this week. And just watch the overall action. If the market is still going strong, maybe nothing to worry about. But there's still some things that I would be concerned about to lower my exposure a little bit. Anyway, bears have been losing all year, but stay nimble and stay thirsty. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
I just want the money, 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 money.